I trusted him like a brother, shared everything with him, helped him every time he needed me. I never imagined he could turn against me. But one morning, the police were at my door, and he had filed a complaint against me. He said I had ruined his life, even though I had never touched a single gamble in my life. I froze, my heart sank, my family was in shock. And in that moment, I realized sometimes the people closest to you can be the ones who betray you the hardest. I had no idea how deep this betrayal would go, or how it would almost destroy everything I had built. My name is Henry David Collins. I am 41 years old. I work as a project manager for a construction company that builds hospitals and schools. I have been married to my wife Denise for 14 years. We have 2 children, a son named Elijah who is 11 and a daughter named Grace who at the time of this story was only 3 months old. I grew up in a small house with parents who taught me that your word is your bond. They taught me that a man is measured not by what he takes from the world but by what he gives to it. They taught me that when someone is drowning you reach out your hand, even if it means getting pulled into the water yourself. That last lesson almost cost me everything. I met Marcus in college. We were both studying business administration at a state university that neither of us could really afford. We worked the same part-time job at a warehouse loading trucks at 4 in the morning before classes started. We would show up exhausted and complain together and dream together about the lives we would build once we graduated. Marcus was funny, he was charming. He could walk into any room and make everyone inside feel like they had known him for years. He had this ability to remember small details about people and bring them up later in conversation in ways that made you feel special. He remembered your birthday. He remembered the name of your childhood pet. He remembered the song that was playing when you told him about your first heartbreak. I loved him like a brother. After graduation, we went our separate ways for a few years. He moved to Atlanta to chase some opportunity that never materialized. I stayed local and started climbing the ladder at the construction company. We kept in touch through phone calls and occasional visits, but life has a way of putting distance between people even when the love remains. Then about 7 years ago, Marcus came back. He had been through a divorce. He had lost a job. He was living in his car when he called me and asked if I could help him get back on his feet. I did not hesitate. I gave him money for a deposit on an apartment. I bought him groceries. I got him an interview at a company where I knew someone in management. I let him eat dinner at my house 3 times a week because I could see he was lonely and broken and needed to feel like he belonged somewhere. My wife was patient with this. She understood that Marcus was important to me. She would set an extra plate at the table and ask him about his day and include him in our family conversations like he was an extension of us. Elijah loved him. My son would run to the door when Marcus arrived and ask him to play video games or throw a football in the backyard. Marcus was good with him. He was patient and playful, and he made my son laugh in ways that filled my heart with gratitude. For about 3 years things were good. Marcus got the job. He started saving money. He began dating a woman named Sharon who seemed kind and stable. I watched him rebuild his life and I felt proud, like I had played some small part in his resurrection. But then something changed. I cannot tell you the exact moment it happened because these things never happen in one moment. They happen slowly, like a crack in a foundation that starts as a hairline fracture and spreads invisibly until one day the whole structure collapses. It started with small things. Marcus began canceling dinner plans at the last minute. He would make excuses about work or feeling tired or having other commitments. When he did come over, he seemed distracted. His phone would buzz constantly and he would glance at it with this look in his eyes that I can only describe as hunger. One night about 4 years ago, I was at his apartment helping him assemble a bookshelf he had bought. His laptop was open on the kitchen counter, and when I walked past it, I saw what was on the screen. It was a gambling website, bright colors and spinning graphics and numbers that promised fortune and delivered destruction. I stopped walking, I looked at him, he looked at me, and in that moment something passed between us that neither of us acknowledged out loud. "Marcus, what is that?" "It is nothing, man, just something to pass the time." "That does not look like nothing, that looks like online gambling." He laughed, but it was not a real laugh. It was the kind of laugh people use when they want to dismiss something serious. "Relax, Henry, I'm just playing around, it is not serious." But I knew it was serious. I had seen what gambling could do. My uncle had lost his house to slot machines when I was a teenager. I watched it tear my family apart. I watched my aunt work 2 jobs to keep food on the table while my uncle sat in front of glowing screens feeding coins into machines that took everything and gave nothing. That night I sat Marcus down and I spoke to him from my heart. Listen to me, I am not trying to judge you, I am not trying to control your life, but I need you to understand something. These games are designed to take everything from you. They are designed by people who understand psychology and addiction, and they know exactly how to make you keep playing even when you are losing. Please, please do not go down this road. He nodded, he said he understood. He said it was no big deal and he would stop. He did not stop. Over the next few years I watched Marcus spiral. The signs were there, but he became skilled at hiding them. He would borrow money and say it was for car repairs. He would miss events and say he was sick. He would disappear for days and then resurface acting like nothing had happened. But the truth always leaks out eventually. One night his girlfriend Sharon called my wife crying. She said Marcus had stolen money from her purse. She said she had found credit cards opened in her name that she had never applied for. She said he would stay up all night on his computer and become angry when she asked what he was doing. They broke up shortly after that. I confronted Marcus. I did not yell. I did not threaten. I sat with him in my backyard while my children slept inside, and I spoke to him like the brother I considered him to be. I know what is happening. I know you are gambling again. I know it has gotten out of control, and I want you to know that I am here for you. I will help you find treatment. I will help you pay for it. I will drive you to meetings. Whatever you need, but you have to want to stop. You have to choose to fight this. He looked at me and I saw something in his eyes that I had never seen before. It was not gratitude. It was not hope. It was something else. Something that looked almost like resentment. You do not understand, Henry. You have never understood. Then help me understand. You sit there in your nice house with your perfect wife and your perfect kids and you tell me about choices. Do you know what it feels like to have nothing? Do you know what it feels like to watch everyone around you succeed while you keep failing no matter how hard you try? I was confused by his words. I was not wealthy. I was not living some extraordinary life. I was a middle-class man with a modest home and a job that required 60-hour weeks. I had built what I had through years of sacrifice and discipline and delayed gratification. Marcus, I have worked for everything I have. You know that. You were there. You saw me grinding at that warehouse. You saw me studying while exhausted. You saw me make choices that were hard because I knew they were necessary. You also had parents who loved you. You had people who believed in you. You had a foundation. I had nothing. I did not know how to respond to that. It was true that Marcus had a difficult childhood. His father left when he was young. His mother struggled with addiction. He was passed between relatives who treated him more like a burden than a blessing. But I also knew that trauma from the past does not excuse destruction in the present, and I knew that I could not save someone who did not want to be saved. That conversation ended with Marcus leaving my house angry. He did not speak to me for 2 weeks. When he finally called, it was to apologize. He said he was stressed. He said he did not mean what he said. He said he was grateful for my friendship. I forgave him because that is what I was taught to do. But looking back now, I realize that something fundamentally shifted in our relationship that night. Something broke that could never be repaired. He had shown me a piece of himself that he could not take back, a piece that was filled with envy and bitterness and blame. I should have paid more attention. The next 2 years passed in a pattern that became familiar. Marcus would disappear, Marcus would resurface. Marcus would promise to change. Marcus would fail. I would offer help. He would reject it. I would pray for him. He would resent me for having something to pray from. Then he lost his job. The company let him go because he was showing up late and missing deadlines and making mistakes that cost them money. He called me furious and said they had treated him unfairly. He said the manager had it out for him. He said the whole system was rigged against people like him. I listened, I sympathized, I offered to help him find another position. But privately, I knew the truth. I had spoken to someone who worked with him. They told me Marcus spent most of his workday on gambling websites. They told me he had borrowed money from multiple coworkers and never paid it back. They told me the company had given him 3 warnings before letting him go. By this point, I had grown exhausted. My wife had grown exhausted. Even my son had started to notice that Uncle Marcus was not coming around as much, and when he did, he seemed different. I made a decision that I now realize may have been the trigger for everything that followed. I told Marcus I could not give him any more money. I said it gently, I said it with love. I explained that I had my own family to take care of and that I could not keep financing a problem I had no power to solve. I told him I would still be there for him emotionally. I told him I would still pray for him, but the financial support had to stop. He did not yell, he did not argue, he simply looked at me with those eyes again, those eyes that held something I could not name, and he said one sentence that I will never forget. I see, so this is who you really are. Then he left. I did not hear from him for 4 months. And then the police showed up at my door. The interrogation room was cold, not just temperature cold, but emotionally cold. Gray walls, gray table, gray chairs, a single window that looked into another room where I assumed someone was watching. The detective across from me was a woman named Tors. She had short hair and sharp eyes and a way of asking questions that made you feel like you had already confessed to something you did not do. Mr. Collins, how long have you known Marcus Thompson? About 22 years. And in that time, would you say you were close friends? I would say he was like a brother to me. A brother, interesting, so you cared about him deeply. Yes. Cared enough to introduce him to activities that would eventually destroy his life. I never did that. I never introduced him to any gambling. I tried to stop him. Over and over I tried to stop him. Detective Tors slid a piece of paper across the table. It was a printed transcript of a statement Marcus had given. I read it and my stomach turned. According to Marcus, I had been the one who first showed him online gambling websites. According to Marcus, I had taught him strategies and encouraged him to bet larger amounts. According to Marcus, I had profited from referral bonuses by getting him to sign up under my account. According to Marcus, I had psychologically manipulated him by making him feel inferior, and then offering gambling as a way to prove his worth and become successful like me. It was lies, every single word was lies. This is not true, none of this is true. I have never gambled in my life. I do not even buy lottery tickets. My wife can tell you, my coworkers can tell you, anyone who knows me can tell you. Mr. Thompson seems very certain about his version of events. Mr. Thompson is an addict who has lost everything and is looking for someone to blame. He cannot face the truth that he did this to himself, so he is pointing at me because I was the closest person to him. That is a convenient explanation. It is the only explanation because it is the truth. She asked me more questions. She asked about specific dates and specific websites and specific conversations. She asked about money I had allegedly given Marcus to gamble with. She asked about messages I had allegedly sent encouraging him to keep playing. I answered everything honestly. I had nothing to hide. But here is what I learned that day. When someone accuses you of something terrible, it does not matter if you are innocent. The accusation itself becomes a weight that presses down on your chest and makes it hard to breathe. The accusation plants a seed in the minds of everyone who hears it. Even if you are eventually cleared, there will always be people who remember the accusation and forget the exoneration. I walked out of that police station 5 hours later feeling like I had aged 5 years. When I got home, my wife was waiting with red eyes and shaking hands. My mother had driven over and was sitting at the kitchen table with a rosary wrapped around her fingers. My father was pacing in the living room like a caged animal. Henry, tell us what happened, tell us everything. I told them. I sat in my own living room surrounded by the people who loved me most, and I explained that my best friend had accused me of crimes I had never committed. I explained that I was now under investigation. I explained that there might be a trial. I explained that my name and my reputation were now in the hands of a system that does not always care about truth. My wife put her head on my shoulder and cried. My mother prayed out loud in words I could barely understand. My father looked at me with an expression I had never seen before. It was anger mixed with helplessness mixed with something that might have been shame. Dad, I did not do this, you know me, you raised me, you know I would never do this. He walked over and put his hand on my shoulder. I know, son, I know who you are, but knowing is not enough, we have to prove it. Those words echoed in my mind for weeks. Prove it. Prove you did not do something. Prove a negative. It is one of the hardest things a human being can be asked to do. The weeks that followed were a waking nightmare. Word spread, it always spreads. Someone at the police station told someone who posted something on social media, and suddenly my name was attached to words like manipulation and gambling and abuse. I received messages from people I had not spoken to in years asking if the rumors were true. Some asked with concern, others asked with barely concealed satisfaction. The ones who had always been jealous of my stability now had something to hold against me. The ones who had always thought I was too self-righteous now had proof that I was just as flawed as everyone else. Except I was not flawed, not in the way they thought. I was simply a man who had trusted the wrong person. At work, my colleagues began treating me differently. Conversations would stop when I entered the room. Eyes would avoid mine. Meetings I should have been invited to were held without me. My supervisor called me into his office and explained that while the company believed in my innocence, they had to consider optics and perhaps it would be best if I took some time off until things were resolved. I went home and sat in my garage for 3 hours staring at nothing. My wife found me there. She sat down beside me on the cold concrete floor and held my hand without saying a word. We stayed like that until the sun went down and the automatic light above us flickered on and illuminated our shadows against the wall. Denise, what if they believe him? What if the system fails and they believe him? Then we will fight, we will appeal, we will hire lawyers, and we will keep fighting until the truth comes out. What if it never comes out? What if this follows me forever? She squeezed my hand tighter. Then we will live with it. We will know the truth and God will know the truth, and that will have to be enough. But it did not feel like enough. It felt like I was drowning in water I could not see while everyone around me stood on the shore and watched. I began to struggle with my faith during this period. I had always believed that God protected the innocent. I had always believed that righteousness was a shield against the arrows of evil. But here I was living what I thought was a righteous life and the arrows were hitting me anyway. I prayed every night, but the prayers felt hollow. I begged for intervention, but the heavens seemed silent. I asked why this was happening, but no answer came. My son noticed the change in me. One night he came into my bedroom and sat on the edge of the mattress and looked at me with eyes that were too wise for an 11-year-old. "Dad, are you in trouble?" I did not know how to answer him. I did not want to lie, but I also did not want to burden him with adult problems. "There is a situation I am dealing with. Someone has said some things about me that are not true, and I have to prove that they are not true." "Who said them?" I paused. "Uncle Marcus." His face changed, confusion, then hurt, then something that looked like the beginning of anger. "Why would he do that?" "I do not know, buddy. Sometimes people make choices that do not make sense. Sometimes people who are hurting try to hurt others." "But you were always nice to him. You always helped him." "I know. That is not fair." "No, it is not." He hugged me then, just wrapped his arms around me and held on tight. And for a moment the weight on my chest lifted just enough for me to remember that I still had things worth fighting for. The investigation continued for 3 months, 3 months of uncertainty, 3 months of interviews and document requests and background checks, 3 months of waiting for someone else to decide whether my life would be destroyed. My lawyer was a woman named Patricia Okonkwo. She was sharp and relentless, and she believed me from the moment she heard my story. She said something during our first meeting that stuck with me. "Henry, the truth has a way of surfacing. Lies require maintenance. They require constant attention and adjustment. The truth just sits there waiting to be found. Our job is to find it before they bury it too deep." She went to work. She subpoenaed Marcus's bank records and discovered something crucial. He had been making deposits and withdrawals from gambling sites for years before he ever reconnected with me. There were transactions dating back to his time in Atlanta when we had barely spoken. There were patterns that showed an established addiction long before I was supposedly the cause of it. She obtained phone records and text messages. She found conversations between Marcus and Sharon where he confessed to his gambling problem, conversations where Sharon begged him to get help, conversations that made no mention of me whatsoever. She interviewed his former coworkers. Several of them agreed to provide statements confirming that Marcus had been gambling at work. One of them had documentation showing that Marcus had borrowed money from him for what he claimed was a family emergency, but was actually to cover gambling debts. And then she found something that changed everything. She obtained Marcus's search history from his devices. It had been subpoenaed as part of the investigation, and buried in thousands of entries was a series of searches that made my stomach drop when I read them. How to file a false police report. Can you sue someone for influencing addiction? How to blame someone legally for gambling losses. Defamation cases against former friends. How to prove psychological manipulation in court. He had planned this, he had researched it. He had crafted his accusation with calculated intention. This was not a broken man lashing out in confusion. This was a deliberate attack designed to make me pay for crimes he had committed against himself. My lawyer presented this evidence to the prosecutor. She presented the bank records and the text messages and the witness statements and the search history. She built a wall of truth so high and so solid that no lie could climb over it. The prosecutor reviewed everything and called my lawyer the next day. We are dropping the investigation. There is no case here. Mr. Thompson's accusations are demonstrably false. But it was not over yet. Marcus had filed a civil suit as well. He was seeking financial damages. He wanted money from me for his losses, and that suit was still moving forward. My lawyer said we should not just defend against it. She said we should countersue for defamation and malicious prosecution. She said Marcus needed to face consequences for what he had done. I agreed. The court date arrived on a cold Tuesday in November. I wore a suit I had bought for my grandfather's funeral because it was the most serious piece of clothing I owned. My wife sat behind me with my parents. My son was at school because I did not want him to see this. Marcus was there. He looked different, thinner, older. His eyes had a sunken quality like a man who had not slept well in months. He did not look at me when I entered the room. He kept his gaze fixed on the table in front of him. Part of me felt sorry for him. Part of me remembered the young man I had met in that warehouse at 4 in the morning. The young man who had dreams and potential and a smile that could light up a room. But another part of me felt something else, something harder, something that had formed in the fire of betrayal. The proceedings began. My lawyer presented her case first. She was methodical and thorough. She walked through every piece of evidence like a surgeon performing an operation. She showed the bank records. She showed the messages. She showed the search history. She called witnesses who testified to Marcus's pattern of blaming others for his problems. Marcus's lawyer tried to object. He tried to spin alternative explanations, but the evidence was overwhelming. There was no interpretation that could make his client look innocent. Then Marcus was called to testify. He walked to the witness stand slowly. He sat down and adjusted the microphone. He looked at me for the first time since the proceedings began, and what I saw in his eyes was not anger or hatred. It was something worse. It was emptiness. The questioning began. His lawyer asked him softball questions designed to make him seem sympathetic. He talked about his difficult childhood. He talked about his struggles with addiction. He talked about how he had trusted me and how I had allegedly betrayed that trust. Then my lawyer stood up for cross-examination. She did not attack him. She did not yell or accuse. She simply asked questions and let his own words trap him. Mr. Thompson, you stated that Mr. Collins introduced you to online gambling. Can you tell me the specific date this happened? He gave a date that my lawyer immediately proved was impossible because I was out of the country at a work conference during that entire week. Mr. Thompson, you stated that Mr. Collins sent you links to gambling websites. Do you have any record of these messages? He said he had deleted them. He said they were on an old phone he no longer had. Mr. Thompson, records show you were gambling years before you reconnected with Mr. Collins. Can you explain that? He said he had dabbled before but that I had escalated it. He said I had taken a small problem and turned it into an addiction. Mr. Thompson, can you explain these search queries found on your computer? She read them aloud. The courtroom was silent. Marcus's face went pale. I was looking for information. I was trying to understand my options. Your options for what? For blaming an innocent man. No, that is not what. Mr. Thompson, let me ask you directly. Did Henry Collins ever encourage you to gamble? A long pause. The judge leaned forward. Everyone was watching. He did not. He told me to stop. He always told me to stop. Then why did you accuse him? Another pause, longer this time. Something was breaking behind his eyes. Because I hated him. The words hung in the air like smoke. You hated him. Can you explain what you mean by that? Marcus looked at me, and for a moment I saw the man I had known, the man I had trusted, the man who was now destroyed by his own choices and looking for anyone to share the blame. I hated that he had everything I did not. I hated that he was happy. I hated that his wife loved him and his kids respected him and his parents were proud of him. I hated that he built a life while I kept destroying mine. And I hated that he tried to help me because every time he helped me it reminded me of how much I had failed. So you accused him falsely? Yes. You knew he was innocent? Yes. You planned this accusation in advance? Yes. The courtroom erupted. The judge called for order. Marcus put his head in his hands. His lawyer looked like he wanted to disappear. I sat there frozen. I had waited months for this moment. I had prayed for the truth to come out, and now it was here, spoken from the mouth of the man who had tried to destroy me. I should have felt victorious. I should have felt vindicated, but all I felt was sadness. Sadness for the man I had loved like a brother. Sadness for the years of friendship that had been real before they became poisoned. Sadness for the waste of it all. The judge dismissed Marcus's civil suit immediately. He ruled in favor of my countersuit and ordered Marcus to pay damages for defamation and emotional distress. He made a statement on the record that false accusations are a serious offense that cause immeasurable harm to innocent people, and that he hoped this case would serve as a warning to others who might consider weaponizing the legal system for personal vengeance. I walked out of that courthouse a free man. My wife was crying, my mother was praying, my father was standing tall with his hand on my shoulder. But I could not celebrate. I walked to a bench outside the courthouse and sat down alone. The November wind cut through my suit and made me shiver. I closed my eyes and let the tears come, not tears of joy, not tears of relief, just tears. Someone sat down beside me. I opened my eyes expecting to see my wife, but it was Patricia, my lawyer. You did it, Henry, the truth came out. I know. So why do you look like you lost? I thought about that question for a long time before answering. Because in some ways I did lose. I lost a friend. I lost 2 years of peace. I lost sleep and money and time with my family. I lost trust in people I thought I knew. I lost a part of myself that believed the world was fair. She nodded slowly. But you gained something too. What? You gained proof that you are the man you always believed yourself to be, proof that your character could withstand the fire, proof that truth matters even when lies seem stronger. That is worth something, Henry. That is worth everything. I did not fully understand her words that day, but I understand them now. The months that followed were a slow process of healing. My job welcomed me back with apologies and a raise. My name was cleared publicly and the rumors faded. My family drew closer together because we had survived something that could have torn us apart. But I was changed. There is no way to go through something like that without being changed. I became more careful about who I trusted, not suspicious but discerning. I learned that not everyone who smiles at you is happy for you. Some people smile while counting the things you have that they want. Some people laugh at your jokes while hating you for your joy. I also became more grateful. Grateful for my wife who never doubted me. Grateful for my parents who stood by me. Grateful for my children who loved me even when they did not understand what was happening. Grateful for a lawyer who fought for the truth. Grateful for a God who I had thought was silent but who I now realize was working in ways I could not see. Because looking back, I can trace the hand of Providence through the entire ordeal. If Marcus had not made those searches, they would not have been on his computer. If those searches had not been subpoenaed, they would not have been found. If his former coworkers had not agreed to testify, there would have been no witnesses. If his bank records had not been preserved, there would have been no proof. Every piece of evidence that saved me was in place before I even knew I needed saving. Every thread of truth was woven into the fabric of events before the lie was ever spoken. It was as if something beyond my understanding had prepared my defense before the attack ever came. I do not know what you believe about God. I do not know if you pray or go to church or read scripture, but I know what I experienced, and I know that I was protected by something greater than myself. I never saw Marcus again after that day in court. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he left the city. I heard he was living with a distant relative somewhere in the Midwest. I heard he was still struggling with his addiction. Part of me wanted to reach out. Part of me wanted to forgive him to his face and offer one more chance at redemption. but another part of me knew that some doors need to stay closed. Some people need to walk their own path even if that path leads to darkness. I pray for him sometimes. Late at night when my house is quiet and my family is asleep, I think about the young man I met in that warehouse. I think about the dreams we shared and the laughter we created, and I ask God to show him mercy even though he showed me none. Because mercy is not about what people deserve. Mercy is about who we choose to be. There is a lesson in all of this, a lesson I learned through pain and fear and tears, a lesson I want to share with anyone who is listening. The people closest to you are the ones who can hurt you most, not because they are evil but because you have opened your heart to them. You have given them access to your vulnerabilities. You have trusted them with information about your hopes and fears and weaknesses. Most of them will honor that trust. Most of them will treasure the gift you have given, but some of them will use it against you. Some of them will take what they know and sharpen it into a weapon, and when they strike you will never see it coming because the attack comes from a direction you were not defending. This is not a reason to close your heart. This is not a reason to trust no one, but it is a reason to be wise, to watch for signs, to pay attention when someone's smile does not reach their eyes, to notice when support feels more like surveillance and friendship feels more like observation. And if you are ever betrayed, if you ever find yourself standing in a police station or a courtroom or any place where someone you trusted has tried to destroy you, remember this. The truth is patient. The truth does not need to be loud or aggressive or desperate. The truth simply waits. It waits for lies to contradict themselves. It waits for stories to fall apart. It waits for the cracks in fabrication to widen until the whole structure collapses. Your job is not to force the truth to appear. Your job is to remain standing until it does. I stood and the truth appeared. It is now 7 years since that day in court. My son Elijah is 18 and starting college. My daughter Grace is 7 and thinks I am the strongest man in the world. My wife Denise and I celebrated our 21st anniversary last month with a quiet dinner at the restaurant where I proposed. I still work at the same construction company. I was promoted twice since my return. My colleagues respect me now in a way they did not before, not because of what happened to me, but because of how I handled it. They saw a man who was accused of terrible things and who remained calm and dignified and trusting in the process. They saw a man who did not lash out or seek revenge, but who simply waited for justice to arrive. That is worth more than any title or salary. Every year on the anniversary of my exoneration, I take a day off work and I spend it in reflection. I go to the park where my father taught me to ride a bike. I sit on the same bench where I sat after the trial ended. I close my eyes and I remember everything. The knock on the door. The cold interrogation room. The silent prayers. The moment of confession. The walk out of the courthouse. I remember it all because I never want to forget, not the pain but the lesson, not the betrayal but the blessing hidden inside it. Because if that betrayal had never happened, I would never have seen the truth about Marcus. I would have continued investing in a friendship that was slowly poisoning my peace. I would have continued opening my home to someone who secretly resented every moment of my happiness. God did not let me lose, He let me learn. And that learning has made me a better man, a better husband, a better father, a better friend to the people who actually deserve my friendship. If you are reading this or listening to this and you are in the middle of your own storm, if someone has betrayed you or accused you or tried to destroy what you have built, I want you to hear something. Hold on. Just hold on. The storm will pass, the truth will emerge, the lies will crumble under their own weight. You may not see how or when or why, but it will happen, because that is how truth works. It cannot be buried forever. Pray if you believe in prayer. Fight if fighting is what is needed. Surround yourself with people who know your heart and will not abandon you. Take care of your body and your mind because you will need your strength. And when the storm finally breaks, when the sun comes through the clouds, when you walk out of whatever courthouse or hospital or dark place you have been trapped in, remember to be grateful. Grateful for survival, grateful for truth, grateful for the people who stood beside you, grateful for the chance to begin again. Because you will begin again, I promise you that. You will wake up one morning and the weight on your chest will be lighter. You will laugh at something and realize you had not laughed in months. You will look at your life and see not what was taken, but what remains. And what remains will be enough. More than enough. It will be everything. I am Henry David Collins. I was accused of crimes I did not commit by a man I loved like a brother. I faced the darkness and I came through to the other side. And if I can do it, so can you. So hold on. The truth is coming. And when it arrives, it will set you free. If you have ever been falsely accused, if you have ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, if you have ever wondered whether God sees what is happening to you, type the word Amen in the comments below. Let me know that this story reached you. Let me know that you are still standing. Because we are in this together. And together we will survive.